Welcome to Perfectly Imperfect Me 365, the podcast where we get real about mental health, messy growth, and being human one day at a time. I'm your host, Rachel, and together we're navigating life's chaos with honesty, compassion, and a little humor. Let's get into it. Hi. Thank you so much, Tara, for joining us. And I cannot wait for my listeners to hear from you. But more importantly, I want you guys, if you're listening, to just sit back and just truly listen to Tara's story, because as somebody who was a self-described introvert growing up, and maybe even a little bit to this day, you're maybe a little bit more comfortable, but your journey with anxiety and where that's taken you and how you actually used your anxiety as a way to make you who you are today and what you're doing today, and didn't get stuck on this label and this idea. So I'm just going to open the floor to you, Tara, to introduce you. Tara Hayes. I'm Rachel. You're listening to Perfectly Imperfect Me 365. And I'm so glad that you're here. And you and I just had our own little session, like business session. And I can't wait to start to work with you. And I'm going to work with you, and people will hear what you do after. So I don't want to spoil that. But let's just get into it. Tell us your story, and how did anxiety and you being an introvert take you to where you are today?
Thank you so much, Rachel. I'm so glad to be here today talking with you. So, I am Tara, and I am an author and a publisher. And before I was an author, I had a lot of anxiety, and I still have anxiety, but it's defined differently. So, what I would say is, I was at a point in my life about 7 years ago where I was working full time in accounting, and then I got laid off from two full-time accounting jobs within a 10-month period. And both of these jobs unassociated with each other. They said that they like me, but they don't think that this job is a fit for me. And during that time, that made me get even more anxiety.
Yeah.
So I needed to figure out exactly my path and what I was supposed to do, because honestly, when I went to school for accounting, I knew that it wasn't what I wanted to do. But being an
Mm.
introvert, I thought, well, let me just do a desk job where I won't have to talk to people. And then also, I had a family member, my uncle, he was an accountant. So I was like, he had a nice big house in Michigan. So how do I get that house? Maybe become an accountant. So that was
Right.
my reasoning for going to school for that. So,
But let
but
me just ask you a quick question. Sorry to interrupt you, but at what age did you know, feel, or get label yourself as an introvert? Did you know from a young age?
I knew from a young age because I barely talked. I was a rather shy child, and in class in school, I barely talked. I think I talked for a little bit until up about first or second grade. And then I remember I was raising my hand in class or something, and then the teacher said something to me, and then I just stopped talking after that. I don't know if
Mm,
she said something that hurt my feelings,
right.
but and then I would be so quiet in the classroom, but then on the playground I was more vocal. And then one of my
Okay.
friends said, why are you so vocal out on the playground, but then so contained in the class? And I couldn't really explain it, but I guess it was just that introverted nature. I was just very calm and reserved and introverted. So I believe I did know from a young age that I was an
Okay.
introvert.
I mean, that also would make sense, though, if a teacher scolds you to a degree, or you interpret it as a scolding, I mean, or embarrasses you. I mean, I mean, I wasn't raising my hand in class because what if I was wrong,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so at a young age, if that teacher invalidated you or made you feel like, how silly could you be to answer that, it would make sense that you'd then kind of shut down in a classroom.
Mm-hmm. Right,
Totally get
exactly.
that. Yeah. So now you notice that, and then you struggle with anxiety throughout your life.
Yes, pretty much throughout my life. And then I don't really know the source of it, but I think it was from mostly from my upbringing. Of course,
Mhm.
I it was a two-parent household, but and my parents gave me food, shelter, love, but I didn't get emotional support, I don't think.
Okay.
I think that there was no uplifting and empowerment. Like, I'm sure my dad loved me, but he would say, just I don't know, he was kind of like a teaser. He would say what did he used to
Like,
say?
suck it up, put your big girl panties on, and just like,
Yeah,
right. That's
yeah,
like my generation. Like, I'm
mm-hmm,
much older than you, but like, that's how we were raised, right?
mm-hmm,
But I don't,
yeah,
but now, like, I think there's so much more of like sensitivity to like learning to validate our loved ones and our kids, you know?
mm-hmm,
And so, yeah, that would make sense. So, your dad's sending this message to you, like, what's wrong with you? Like, it's not a big deal. Just do it. But to you, it was
right.
like, oh my God, it was horrible, I'm sure.
Right. And then as I got older, my dad, I guess he had anxiety too. I think he had anxiety, but he didn't. But in his upbringing, you didn't go to therapy or you didn't do anything. It was just like tough it out. And his sister, my aunt, had anxiety. So I don't know if it's a family thing, but I don't believe it's a I think it's learned behavior and environment too. So I think that has something to do with it. And then just having no self-esteem, like low
Mm.
self-esteem and like nobody telling me I was beautiful. Like, I know my parents love me, but they didn't say, "Oh, Tara, you're beautiful, Tara." And I have a twin sister and I have a sister who's 2 years older.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so it just wasn't like not a supportive environment. So
Did your
maybe
sister get that accolades? Did you feel like she got that accolades?
I feel like my sister that's 2 years older, I feel like she was the favorite, but she wouldn't say that. So I feel like she was my dad's favorite. And then even though me and my sister are twins, I'm the middle child. I'm 16 minutes older, so it's like maybe I have middle child syndrome, so.
I got that. And people don't realize that even though you're a twin and you're born the same day, 16 minutes is a bigger, it's a pretty big size difference between twins in a lot of ways. And then
hmm
there's three of you, so it does put you in that space. I get
hmm
that. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And
Right.
then, yeah, so I pretty much did have anxiety for my entire life. And when I wrote the book, I decided to share about my experience with anxiety to help other
Mm.
people who were dealing with anxiety, and especially those that were that didn't think that there was someone out there like them that thought the way that they did. I wrote about every anxiety I thought that I had. I thought I had OCD at one point, like the obsessive thoughts, and then social anxiety, of course. There's a story where I wrote about I used to get so much anxiety going into parties. Like me and my sister were going to a party in sixth grade, and I didn't talk, I didn't dance, I just held up the wall. So it's because I didn't know how to interact with other kids. I don't know. I don't know if it was just yeah, the low self-esteem. And then I had something called, I don't know if you've heard of agoraphobia. It's like
Mm-hmm.
fear of the
So,
marketplace.
right. So
I had
getting
that.
out with somebody who
Yeah.
describes themselves as an introvert, struggles
hmm
with anxiety, and now you're agoraphobic, and now you have to get out in public.
Yeah. I had all those.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then fear of
And
public
then you
speaking.
chose accounting, which is so
hmm
interesting because accounting is, I mean, I'm a math person, but I'm obviously a psychotherapist, but my husband's a CPA. And the thought
hmm
of like accounting and having to have those expectations and those timelines, that sounds so stressful and so anxiety provoking to me. But yet
hmm
you kind of, it sounds like you thrived in it. You were there for many years.
hmm Yeah, and then I will say to that, I did go to school for it and I did well with it in school, but in the work world, I couldn't get past like the accounts payable, accounts receivable level, the
Because
lower
you had to ask
levels.
for help. You had to ask for the money. So that would put you in
hmm
that space where you had to interact with people.
Right,
Right. Which would
right.
make total sense for me as a therapist to say, okay, that would be really, really difficult for you. For somebody who
hmm
struggles with being an introvert and
hmm
agoraphobia at the
hmm
same time. I got that. Okay.
And then so the book shares that journey and then it shares the turning point where I one of the medications I was taking, it well, I believe was a medication, but I got a colonoscopy at 29 years old. And then the
Wow.
colonoscopy said I had microscopic colitis. And I was like, well, how the heck did I get that? So I went to the psychiatrist. I said, I got microscopic colitis and I did some research on sertraline. It looks like this might have been the cause of it. And she said,
Mm.
well, did you go to the maker of the drug? I said, no, I didn't go to the maker of the drug, but I can't take this anymore. So of course I had so much anxiety trying to get that transition, but I did make it out and I've been off of the medication for about 8 years now. But
Wow. Love
yeah,
that.
yeah, but I feel like I had to do it because because it was causing something off in my body because I've been taking it for 15 years. And the psychiatrist couldn't tell me what it was, but what else could it have been if I
Yeah.
researched it and that's what it said. So that started my first natural healing journey. That was the
That had to
turning
be
point.
pretty tough though, to get off
It
the
was.
medication that you were, it's, and for many people or my listeners, remember this is just a actual, this is not in lieu of therapy. This is not any kind of medical advice. She's just giving you
Hmm.
her experience and I'm just, sharing her story because I think it's so important for many of my listeners who think that they're alone and that
Hmm.
for many people, medication is the only way that they can tolerate some of the anxiety. But it sounds
Hmm.
like you had a secondary problem that like kind of trumped in some ways your almost the anxiety alone. Like you were willing to tolerate that anxiety that before you ever dealt with like more colitis.
Right.
And so that's a motivator. And so you got off the medication. Did you get into
Hmm.
therapy at that time to like learn some skills?
Yeah, I was definitely in therapy, learning the skills, and honestly, it wasn't easy getting off the
I'm
medication
sure.
at all. It was not easy. And I started looking for natural supplements. Like I tried valerian, I tried
Mm,
ashwagandha, and then I was exercising more. I just needed a replacement and those things, it didn't work immediately, of course. I had to find what was working for me. I had insomnia. I had a lot of things, but I feel like writing the book and then once I wrote the book and other people were reading it and resonating with it, I feel like, okay, I'm not alone in this anymore. So I have to keep it going. So I think just helping others while I was healing myself and sharing my story and building the business is part of the reason why I was able to lessen my anxiety. I found
wow.
purpose. I found purpose. I found
That's
my
it.
way.
That's
Yeah.
it. You found your
Hmm.
purpose. And that's so important, whether it be depression or anxiety or any other mental health issue. You have to find a purpose. And
Hmm.
sometimes it may take years, right? Like
Hmm.
I knew from a very young age that I wanted to be a therapist. That is not typical. That is not the norm for many people. And probably
Right.
because I was in therapy when I was a young age, right, with certain things. And so I knew I wanted to help people. But that's not the typical, right? It's most people get out of college and they're like, okay, now what am I doing?
Hmm.
Right? But
Exactly.
finding a purpose, and it was not the purpose that you thought you went to school for.
Right, right, exactly. And then like when I went to school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just went because first I was liberal arts and then I was like, well, I need to make a decision. And
And
then
you
me and
wanted that
my
big house.
exactly. Yeah, so me and my sister, we both went for accounting and now we're both not doing accounting. So
That's so funny.
but I was like, well, I have to get through school. I have to do something. So, and that's why I did it. But, and I was going to get the certification, but something told me, like the CPA, something told me, don't do it. So, and I didn't do it. So, and then it just took a little bit longer to find my way. And then I found it. So,
So when you wrote your first book, were you nervous about that?
e- extremely. So I took the course and it was okay writing the book, but it was a lot of work too because the course simplified it, but the writing the book is the easy part. And I didn't know that at the time. And then after I wrote it, you have to tell people about it, right? So the
Mhm.
scary part was telling people because it's like, Tara, I'm an introvert. So now all of a sudden I'm telling people I wrote a book. So it's like this a different part because I've never been this out there person. So now I have to tell people I wrote a book. So I was, I had fear of judgment, like, oh, people are going to read my words. They're going to think I'm crazy because it was
Oh,
an
yeah,
intimate story. So I had all that going on in my mind. And then I had the part that I had to tell people I wrote a book. This introvert just decided to get up and jump up and write a book. But I didn't get any backlash. It was just all up here thinking
of
that
course.
people would,
Which
that
that's what
people,
anxiety does, right? Let's face it.
yeah,
Anxiety usually tries to trick us and it's a complete mind, right? Because at the
right,
end of the day, that's what anxiety does. We start to second
right.
guess ourselves, second question what I mean, I know I do that
Mm-hmm.
plenty of times. And I'm a good therapist. I know what I'm doing. And there are times where I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like such a fraud,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So it was more than writing the book. It was the putting myself out there part that was scarier than anything. But once I told people I was an author, they know, oh, congratulations, congratulations. But then the part you that you're not prepared for is when people don't really care as much. When
Mm,
you're after you publish a book, like you have to keep putting it out there to people. And then the people closest to you, most likely, they won't be the ones supportive of you. So then you have to find and build your own community of people who do love you and love what you do. So that's what
Gotcha.
my journey has been about this last 6 years, finding the people, like the like-minded people.
Yeah,
Unless you've written a book or unless you're an entrepreneur, the person that hasn't experienced that or been in that journey, they won't understand. So,
gotcha. And I
hmm
mean, let's face it, I mean, because obviously we've talked a little bit before this, even about me writing a book, right? And just like some of the self-help books, right? There's so many self-help books out there, but all it takes is just one person to read yours
right.
and to get it out. And I think that for me personally, I mean, I have a whole look of, I'm looking at my bookshelf consists predominantly of people like you who
hmm
write books that they've experienced themselves,
hmm
different than like, novels, right? But
hmm
like I like the autobiography kind of thing that that the person is writing it, they've experienced it. Because I do
hmm
think that especially when it comes to anxiety, depression, any kind of mental health, like having something that you can read that somebody else has gone through and gotten through the
hmm
other side gives a lot of
hmm
people a lot of hope.
Right. I love that. And then one of the inspirations for my book was there's a therapist, her name is Jody Aman. Her book was called You Won Anxiety Zero. So I was reading her book and then I saw myself in her book. So I was like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so those are the types of books that I like. And it really was an inspiration just seeing how she had anxiety and she became a therapist. So it's like I didn't become a therapist, but it's like I could see myself in her story. So I like those types of books.
Right.
Definitely. Yeah.
Right. And so now take me, so you decided you're leaving the accounting world,
hmm
started writing a book for yourself, and then
hmm
you turn that into a business.
Right. And then before I even got to the publishing, I did a bit of life coaching. I did a little bit of that. I helped couple other people with their anxiety, but I had a therapist at the time. And my therapist, I showed her a podcast I did because I said, hey, I'm not always this anxious person that you see coming in. There is a positive, there's an uplifting
Yeah.
side to me. I wanted her to see that. But she saw it in a way as not the way that it didn't convey the way I wanted her to see it. So
Mm.
she thought that maybe I didn't give her enough credit on my podcast interview because they asked me what had helped me with my anxiety. I said, well, journaling has helped, but I didn't say I talked a little bit about therapy, but I didn't say much about it, I guess. And then she
Which is
kind of,
okay because that's your own private
yeah.
space.
Yeah, and then she kind of freaked out and said, you said journaling helped you. I was here with you every day. So that's not true. And
Oh,
then
wow.
she said I had personal identity disorder. So she thought I had that. Like I was like two different people. So it was after that. And then she told me, you're not qualified to be an entrepreneur. You're not qualified to write a book. And your book is going to hurt the mental health community. After she said that, I said, okay, we're done here. So,
Wow, I'm so sorry
hmm
that was your experience because I think that any book written from a person's point of view that they have
hmm
experienced will resonate. And again, you didn't write the book. I mean, maybe you did write it. I mean, like I would love for a million people to buy my book if I when I eventually publish something, right?
hmm
But I'm writing it more for I know I have this information and I know it's useful. And
hmm
if one person can benefit from it,
hmm
then why I wrote it was great. Right.
Right.
And it
Mhm.
sounds like above anything else, writing that book was cathartic for you.
Right. It definitely was. And I mean, it was like, first it was vanity. It was like, well, I need to get my story out there. And then it became therapeutic. It was like, okay, I got this out. And once I started sharing it, other people could relate to it. They said my words were their brain. Someone said they cried when they read the book. So it's like, okay, if I never wrote this,
Yeah,
then these people wouldn't have a story to relate to. And then
100%.
and then there's someone else that read my book recently, or she bought it for her daughter. Her daughter's 21 years old. She's in college now, and her daughter has a lot of anxiety, and she carries it around as her security blanket. She said, I feel like
Oh
she
my God,
wrote this
that's
book for me.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's so amazing. Right.
hmm
And so going back to like your experience with that therapist, that kind of reminds me of when that teacher scolded you.
hmm
It's kind of like, so why are you going to continue to share? And I think that this is so important. Again, I that's why I started this podcast channel. I started this
Mhm.
podcast channel so that I can help people who couldn't get to therapy or didn't have family support to get to therapy or maybe even had a lot of shame about going to therapy because maybe you were raised in a family that didn't believe in therapy, right?
Mhm. Right.
I did. That's why I started it, right?
Mhm.
And if it's helped people, and I love that people have reached out and said, Rachel, this really has been helpful to me. I totally can understand that. And,
Mhm.
I think it's so important that people, my listeners, listen to their gut, right? Your
Mhm.
journey, Tara, may have been very different than somebody else's. Like you were very fortunate and determined, it sounds like, to get off your medication. And
Mhm.
there might be some people who cannot get off of it. And that doesn't mean
Right.
that their journey's wrong or that they should be embarrassed by any means because everybody's journey is different. I think what you've said is that you also found a purpose.
Mhm.
And so for listeners, I think it's important to recognize that journaling doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't need to be pretty. It just needs to be
Mhm.
your authentic self,
Right.
you
Mhm.
know? And so now that how many books have you written?
So I've written two,
That's
and
awesome.
I
I love
and
that.
I've helped, I guess, about a dozen authors now publish their books.
That's amazing. And I'm hope that I'm going to be another author that you get to,
I would
publish
love
because
that.
yeah, I think that, I have to get out of my own way, right? And I
Mhm.
know that I have to get out of my own way and know that what I have to say is like valuable. So when people come to you, right? And I'm not going to describe you as an introvert because that's a label that I think that you don't have to define yourself by, but
Mhm.
when it might be more uncomfortable for you to get out there and talk to people, right?
Mhm.
How do you work through that? Because obviously you're interviewing people to say, I'm going to help publish a book for you, right?
Mhm.
I've got to communicate, I've got to engage with you. What do you do for people who struggle with that? Like what has been helpful for you to be able to push past that?
I would say maybe I'm situational introverted because I know if I know that I'm going to have a call, like I know someone's coming to me, then I have a little bit of anxiety before the call, and I'm like, Tara, I start breathing, and then I'm like, it's just a conversation. So I'm just going to come in and be my authentic self, see how I can help them if I can, and then if I can't, then I can't help them. But honestly, it gets a little bit of discouraging when I know that there's somebody that needs to share their story, but then they tell me they're not ready or it's the timing. So yeah, all that's discouraging. But
Mm,
how I get ready for that is my heart starts pounding honestly before the calls. But then it's like once I'm in there and I start the meeting, I just smile. I'm like, hey, how you doing? And I just
mm,
come on and then I'm just myself. But then when I'm networking, I have to do a lot of networking. So I go to the same spaces where I know people, and then I say hi to my friends, basically. And then someone else taught me a trick too. They said, if you see a circle of people and then you see one person you know, just jump in the circle and then people will start talking to you, or if not, then
yeah,
walk away.
absolutely. But just so you know, Tara, a little bit before our call, I was also nervous. And I don't think that that's abnormal,
Hmm.
right? I think that people experience anxiety obviously to different levels, right? And when you're invalidated throughout life, like you were describing your dad, like who's probably very loving, but he communicated in the way that he was raised. Like, hey, just suck it up.
Hmm.
Like, why are you anxious about that? It's not a big deal. Just go talk to those people. It's a
Hmm.
huge deal to somebody who's uncomfortable talking to new people, right?
Hmm.
But I tell my clients, like, I'm doing this podcast, and every time I meet a new guest, I get anxious,
Hmm.
right? When I've done some Ironman, I've done some triathlons, and I have to start the swim, or even before a race, like I've done a 16 full marathon, and there hasn't been one marathon that I haven't started or a 5K that my heart wasn't pounding when I before the whistle went off,
Hmm.
right? I don't think that's abnormal. I think
Okay.
we're just taught that it's so uncomfortable, and many people just want to avoid it. Right.
Hmm.
But if we can recognize that it makes sense that you're normal, you have never met me, you have
Hmm.
no idea what it's going to be like. That unknown is really uncomfortable, but I think it's very common.
Hmm.
So, I feel anxious. I get anxious when I, meet new people, when I get a new client and I'm meeting them for the first time, because
Hmm.
we all want to be liked. We all
Hmm.
don't want to stumble over our words. We all, but at the end of the day, like, so what happens if we do,
Right,
right?
exactly.
I think on one of my podcasts, I used the wrong word. And I thought, okay, well, I'm not even going to edit that. I'm just going to leave it in because that's myself. That's just who I am, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so I think that you have such a beautiful story because you've shown that, it makes sense that feeling anxious would lead to feeling more introverted, right?
Mhm.
And it's interesting that job, maybe that accounting job really just kind of reinforced your anxiety, reinforced your ability to stay to yourself.
Mhm.
And here now you're a publisher,
Mhm.
you're meeting with people, you have to
Mhm.
market yourself, you have to get out
Yeah.
there, right? And you're probably getting a little bit more comfortable with that, even if you feel anxious still.
Yeah, I definitely do feel more comfortable with it, but I do still feel anxious as far as like public speaking because that was one of the fears that I had in my book. I would have never done public speaking about 10 years ago, but now I'm doing it because people need to hear my story. So I am more comfortable with it and more comfortable talking to people because before I didn't, when I first started my business, I said, I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to network. I just want to sell courses. But if nobody knows you're out there, if nobody knows that your course is there or connected with you, nobody's going
100%.
to buy it. So,
Correct.
and I experienced that. Nobody bought my courses. So I was like, okay,
Mhm.
I do need to start talking to people. So, but
Yeah.
I've learned to enjoy it now, talking to
Oh, I
people.
love that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think public speaking is like really uncomfortable for a lot of people. My
Hmm.
brother was in charge of a lot of like his company and for a long time, and he'd get up, he was in charge of a lot of people to work that worked under him. And he would talk in like big spaces. And in fact, I think he even interviewed Will Smith, in fact.
Wow.
And he said, I'm always so uncomfortable speaking. And it's so interesting because from sitting where I'm at, like he's my little brother, but he's always been a great, fabulous speaker, but he's
Hmm.
so uncomfortable. But
Hmm.
people don't know that. People don't know
Right.
what's inside you. People cannot see your thoughts, hear your thoughts, feel your thoughts.
Hmm.
Right. And so I think that getting out and doing it more often and letting people know like you're not alone. Anxiety
Hmm.
does not need to define you.
Right. It doesn't need to find you or stop you because I thought that years ago I was just stuck and I couldn't do anything with my anxiety. And then I thought, what's wrong with me? But now it's more, I see it more as a gift, I would
Yeah,
say, more as a gift and more if I didn't have it, I might have never developed this business, might have never wrote this book. And it's more of I don't see it as an enemy anymore. I'm just befriending my anxiety. Like
there
it's
you go.
there, yeah, but it's not
100%.
controlling me anymore. So,
Right. And that's what we teach in my DBT. And like I'm a DBT therapist and we teach that like learn to like love your emotions. And
hmm.
that's not like the universal like love, but like learn to love it. Like you don't have to be so afraid of it because the second you learn to that it's a friend, it's helping you in some ways, even if it feels really crappy,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
It's no longer controlling you.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I love
So
that part of it, yeah.
yeah. So what's up next for you? So let me ask you this real fast before I get to that question. Has your family seen a difference? Like, because you talk about like that, were they extroverted people? Like, or would,
Um, my dad passed away a few years ago, but
oh,
he
I'm
was
sorry.
more, thank you. He's more, I don't know if he's extrovert or introvert. I think that people liked him. So I think people liked him and they were talking about how nice he was, but then when he came home, it was like a different, everybody has like a two sides. So, I loved my dad, but it's like there was two sides definitely. And I have two sides too. I think everybody has two sides. So he was nice, but then nice out there and then nice sometimes at home. Sometimes you come home and you're frustrated at work and all this stuff. So,
Right, of course.
but my mom's pretty introverted.
Mm,
She would never do anything I'm doing right now. She doesn't understand it. She would never do it, like put herself out there the way I'm doing it. My sister, my twin, she's seen a change in me. And then her partner, he's seen a change in me too, because he used to see how angry I was and how anxious I was. But now he said, I'm proud of her. Like she's getting out speaking, getting out talking to
I
people
love
and
that.
this. Yeah. So it's definitely been a change, but and still a work in progress though.
Aren't we all? I mean, I'm 54 and I'm still a work in progress.
Hmm.
I think that if we aren't better than the version we were yesterday, then we can't grow.
Hmm.
Then, so, so where can people find you? Are you on social medias? Like, drop your handlers. Like, where can they find? I think I know you're on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I am on Facebook and Instagram, but I'm not active there currently. I'm only active on LinkedIn
Okay.
at Tara Martina Hayes. And My website, nobody really goes there. So, or people go there, but that's not the best place to reach me. So
Okay.
I can give my email address. So my email is Tara, first name Tara, last name Hayes, Hayes,
Okay.
books, books @gmail.com.
Love it. And I will also make sure that that's in our show notes for sure. I love that. Books at gmail.com. Okay. So, I mean, Tara, thank you so much. This has been so enlightening. It's been I hope I know my listeners out there definitely can benefit from it because a lot of my clients struggle with anxiety. Many feel very alone, whether it be from their own families, loved ones, just society, you know. But more importantly, the message that you're sending that you can do anything as long as you just don't let that emotion control you.
Right. As long as you believe in yourself. Like I had to learn that too, that anxiety is an emotion because I just thought that it was just outer forces attacking my mind, I thought. But it's an emotion. And then as long as you don't control it doesn't control you, you can basically achieve whatever you want to achieve. It doesn't have to stop you. You can do public speaking, you can write a book, you can do all the things as long as you just don't let it control you.
I love that. Well, you've definitely inspired me, and I so appreciate that.
Thank you, Rachel.
And so, for my listeners, I'm going to make sure you find Tara in my show notes. And I really appreciate you tuning in. Don't forget to follow me, subscribe, rate me, like it, share with friends, and share this podcast episode with anybody that you might know who is struggling with some anxiety or maybe just even the fear of doing something that they've always wanted to do. And what's interesting is that's how this podcast got started. I had been thinking about this for 10 years before I actually started it. And finally, I said, why am I letting my anxiety control me? And I started it. And I'm going to do the same with my book. I'm not going to let that anxiety control me anymore. And I'm going to get my book out. So
Yay.
I appreciate you, Tara. Thank you so much for joining me. And to my listeners, thanks again for joining Perfectly Imperfect Me 365.